So you said you're 58. Is that what I heard?
I will be on July 1st. Yes.
So what's the secret to staying so vibrant?
Remember that guy?
He's smirking right now.
Yeah. So it's like, Barefoot Ted. That's I feel like a politician, talking, but by this point I'm used to it, right? Barefoot Ted, chapter 25 in Christopher McDougall's best-selling book, Born to Run, starts out with I joke and I say, one of the finest sentences in American literature. Barefoot Ted was right, of course. And it's like, it's a joke, but what am I right about? What is it about being able to be 58? I'm even having to examine it myself, where I'm actually palpably feeling stronger. I'm feeling sharper. I'm feeling confident. I'm feeling excited about the new opportunities that are coming into play in the world. I'm connected. I'm spending more time having gratitude rather than stressing out on the other things. However, just so that everybody understands, I also blow gaskets. I take turns too fast and fly off the edge. I blow up. I crash planes in a joking way. Like I was at the Born to Run Ultramarathons. This Luna Sandals has a booth there. I think it was the 12th year. We rent out a big ranch, 26,000 acre ranch in California, in Central California, put 2 10-mile loops on it and have a big party in the middle. It's kind of the combination of the sacred and the profane. We bring in some Raramuri Tarahumara runners from Chihuahua. We have dancing and all the rest. And somehow I got up on stage this last one and was asked to improvise a song. Now, 2 or 3 years before, they got me a mic and I improvised a song, and that thing got turned into a lyric and somebody kept it going. And now it's a cool song about ultramarathons. But this time I got up there and I started singing, and I realized this plane was crashing. In other words, it was such a it was just so bad. But then I realized, you know what? Sometimes you got to take that all the way. If that plane's crashing, you're really going down. Well, now's the time to do everything you ever, this is not the time to get weak. This is the time to let it all out. So I don't know if anybody recorded that song I did on Friday, but if they did, I'm telling you, it's a plane crash. People are screaming. It's horrible. So Barefoot Ted tries to live in the moment as best as possible, childlike, not getting too far ahead into the future unless it has something to do with a saint like Santa Claus. Or I just found out in the last 3 months, I found out that my birthday, Christmas was, Santa Claus and I had great deals going from the very beginning. And that dude's been legit as a saint. That's the only one I ever bothered to care about. So much so I even met my wife in the village where St. Nicholas was born and did his ministry in Turkey. It's called Demre. I didn't know that that's where I was when I met her. I had 2 little Santa Claus statues on my shrine at home. But I have a new saint, and it's connected with our topic today. It turns out my birthday, July 1st, didn't have a saint day before. But in 2015, without anybody telling me, a dude was picked, and his saint day is July 1st. And the dude walked up and down California in sandals many, many times, named many of the places that even where I live in Santa Barbara now. And that dude, Saint Junipero Serra, is my new dude, man. I have a saint who's the patron saint of California.
That's pretty neat.
I just found out. So, dudes, it's like recognizing that if you're alive, I don't care who you are, if you just look around a little and have a better attitude, you'll find that you're a miracle too. Everyone is. And that's I'm becoming more and more like that. It's just like to be alive with all the opportunities that we all have and the ability to do this kind of shit.
Absolutely.
Come on, man. We're conjuring spirits out of the ether. This is powerful magic.
No, absolutely, man. The energy is awesome.
So I live that way. That gives you a hint. That long tirade of a monologue, something in there, if you unpack it, has the secret, I'm sure.
I'm curious what your daily routine looks like, because I was looking at your pictures, and I was expecting all the running you do. I'd expect you to be pretty trim, and you are. But you have a lot of muscle for being 58. So what does your routine look like? I mean, are you lifting weights? You doing body flow workouts?
Good question. Yeah, that's a great question. So first of all, I'm famous as a runner. And I got famous because of that book, Born to Run. And then I have a company that seems to have birthed 1,000 others. I mean, back in the day, 2006, I ran the Boston Marathon in those 5-finger shoes for the first time. They had just been released, and I was like, I had been doing a lot of research. I came to the realization, okay, before I start effing around with all the various marketing gadgets and whatnot, I started riffing on the idea, hey, didn't we sort of evolve on this planet? And aren't there maybe clues out there from our ancestors who've been playing around with basically the same default equipment since the beginning of time? Yes, there's all kinds of great technologies, but the body's a friggin' great technology, yo. Look at that thing. I mean, seriously. And here's one where you suddenly have a piece of equipment that you own outright, if you're smart and you understand. You can experiment on endlessly without filling out any paperwork. You can put your middle finger up to anybody that tries to tell you that something else is better when you know different, if you have half a backbone. And then in the end, I mean, it's just like, go for it, man. So I did. And what I found is, yes, running was an important nut to crack because so many people connect it with some kind of capacity. If you can run far, that's like a fair, any able-bodied person can run. So it's easy to begin to use running as a tool to show you where you are on the spectrum of how serious it is you take this very simple tool you have and what can you make it do. So it's a great equalizer, like boxing in a way. So you can, I kind of enjoyed it that way. But in the end, these days, my style is I'm not interested in times, distances, speeds anymore. I'm a soul surfer. So what I'm looking for, my running is a practice. It's a way of, I integrate it in a little bit all throughout my day. I don't do any more of the, I don't do any of the, I don't have any prescription for performance anymore. And I don't run a lot. I run quality. Like I'll go out and run along these rocks. There's an example. There's a huge pile of rocks that create a sort of a water block out here by the marina. Broken rocks up and down. You go run on that. You learn how to run on that light-footedly in your bare feet, moving around those rocks that if you fall, you will look, the speeds are low, but you will be falling on hundreds of little sharp, razor sharp, it's a skill, but you do that. And I train that way along with running in the mountains here in Santa Barbara, which are super steep. But that kind of training can turn into, if you're truly an athletic person, or you've got history with these kind of like 100-milers or whatever, you already have the fundamental capacity to do it. It's really the skill to do it well, and well equals efficiently. And so I'm all about, I don't care about distance, time, and speed. I want to know how I'm feeling inside and how I can get super efficient. So a lot of my running these days is all nose breathing. I keep it very low intensity, but I learned to just like enjoy it, soak it up. Like my running is, for me these days, I'm 58, is when I'm done, I feel better than when I started, kind of thing. More and more and more. And that's like building up. And then when I suddenly have to use it in a sort of athletic performance way, like at the Born to Run Ultra, another thing that happens, they have this game where they set maybe 30 feet apart, 2 cones, and then they create this huge mound of Lego blocks. And then they get people in bare feet. Then they force them to cram down a banana before they have 30 seconds to run as many times as they can between those 2 cones, okay? Yeah. So all these people have done it, and I never do it. I don't participate in it because I feel I have an unfair advantage, and and I just don't want to do stuff like that. But I'm finishing up, and my friend Josue Stephens, who used to be pretty important in this, he still might be part of Spartan. He comes in and out. He creates the really big events. He's in like some kind of part of the Spartan organization that's the crazy stuff, like the really wild stuff. And I see he's finishing up. So I'm watching him carefully, and he's and he's a badass. And and then they are world record host. And I'm like, what? World record? I had watched him, right? And I'm like going, he could improve on this easily. I was like watching him so then I thought, okay, this is my chance to kayfabe it a little or whatever, So I said, I challenge that, and so they're like, oh, huh. So they're all Barefoot Ted. So then they come and dump twice as much Legos now. They get a big fucking green banana. And now I'm pissed. Now I realize, okay, this is my little opportunity. 30 seconds. Nothing. It's not like 100-miler. You got 24 hours of fucking having to brutalize. 30 seconds, I can do this. Legos, no problem for Barefoot Ted. Green banana, that's going to suck, but we can make this happen. Dudes, you're looking at the world record holder of the Lego 30-foot cone run.
That's badass.
So specific. It sounds like a really fun time out there. Y'all have so many unique things that y'all do out there.
I think you guys need to come out and do your podcast from there next year, dudes.
Don't tempt us. Don't tempt us.
Yeah, but if you got a trailer, you roll out. You're sitting on a ranch. You save a lot of money when you're in California. You bought your own house.
I like that. Dude,
I have to ask, since like many others, after reading the book, I went the barefoot route, and I evolved kind of like you. I did the Vibram 5 fingers. I went to the Merrells because my toes felt real restricted in the Vibrams. And then I actually bought some sandals before I heard about your company. I felt it got kind of slimy on the sandals that I bought. I think they were zeros. And they would just kind of like move around. So I've also tried to just do barefoot, but it's actually on concrete because we live in Texas where we don't have trails and mountains and nice stuff. Well, at least
come on, now.
In Houston,
not true.
In Houston. Okay.
My family's from Houston, by the way.
No way.
Oh hell yeah.
Yeah.
I didn't. What part?
Back in the day. But they were smart enough to pick up all their stuff and move to California.
Well,
just kidding.
He's still got the accent.
So I can do it.
So with that, I'm very curious. Since you've been doing this such a long time, how has your feet evolved since you've been doing it? Like I know that the toes start to splay and the bottom of your feet becomes very durable. Like what's that look like for you?
Oh, okay. Got it. Yeah, that's a good. So, that was one of the things that Born to Run did was turn everybody into self-experimenters in a sense. And the only disadvantage of that thing was many people thought, hey, now I can take off my shoes and that's going to solve every problem. And of course, that's not the way it works. It's not a miracle cure. So my background, though, set me up to being able to transfer into barefoot running in a way that not everyone easily can do today. And let me explain why. I really think you should think of various human capacities as sort of like languages. Everyone has the capacity to pick up a language if they're a human being. However, let's say you were born in a village where they speak a different language and you spent your first 5 years there, and then you moved to another place which had a completely different language, and you spent the rest of your adult life there, let's say the next 25 years there. So now you're 30 years old, you're finally going back to the old village and you're bringing a friend and you guys are going to stay a year there. Well, both people in a year later are going to be able to communicate in the language that they're going to be able to have some facility of the language if they want to survive, right? Days and foods and directions. But the guy that was there his first 5 years, he's going to be picking that up much more quickly than the guy that never even saw the language, heard it before, saw their alphabet. So growing up in Southern California in the skateboard surf era where I did, barefooting was perfectly natural and normal. I mean, my school clothes was hang 10. I had 2 golden feet embroidered on my clothes, So, and we only started wearing shoes when our skateboard started going faster. About 75, we got urethane wheels. We started wearing Van Dorens, but still barefoot was predominant in so many things for me growing up. So it was even in running in college or even high school. It was called, we did 3 days in the gym, 2 days on the track, or then 3 days on the track, 2 days on the gym. So it was all around out. It was like athletic training, let's say. So it was all the different kind of athletics. And then I just got used to that. And I got into running a little bit that way. But many of us in California at that time would run barefoot. You can actually, in the 60s, if you go look at yearbooks in Southern California, cross-country teams are all barefoot. There was a guy, Herb Elliott, an Australian, that was on the cover of Sports Illustrated magazine in the late 50s and again in the early 60s, running barefoot. He's the first Australian getting some gold medals and so forth. Barefoot was not really off the charts, but it was cool to have cool shoes. Shoes are a marker of, of status, of style, you're connecting to the brand. So my feet were already sort of adapted to a lifestyle of outdoor moving and being able, like scuba diving and having to walk down the cliffs and stuff with scuba tanks. We did it barefooted, right? So we knew how to handle ourselves. So my foot was a robust, eloquent speaker of the barefoot language. I just didn't know that could also translate into running long distances on concrete. And that's where adapting to the form of running that's more efficient was really the epiphany for me. The luck was my feet were already so well adapted that it wasn't a gigantic leap of faith to be able to actually. So it's not like Tom, Dick, or Harry, who grew up wearing orthotic boots. Mother never let him take his shoes off. He reads a book, Born to Run, and he's going to take his boot off and go run on it's sorry, folks. It's not a miracle cure. It's just, if you're a human animal and you have a foot, you can probably, particularly if it hasn't been destroyed by a variety of different things that were supposed to help it, bring it back. And you should, if you can, because it's a very valuable tool. That motherfucker has got us on every nook and cranny of this planet by its virtue of its skill, along with bits of portable ground that anybody can make on their own anywhere in the world. I mean, figuring out how to make a piece of footwear, something to cover your foot, if it means the difference between you living and dying, guess what, gentlemen? We three would exist still because we'd figure it out. Somebody might just stop. I can't go. It's too rocky. It's too hot. Okay, we'll try. We might come back if we can. I'd start figuring out how to find a way to, and it's not long. Human beings, I think footwear, probably one of the very first human inventions, because we're persistent hunters. We just need some portable ground to make it keep our natural gait, not try to fix the foot. It's already perfect. Just give me a little bit of portable ground. And like a surfboard, and I really equate Lunas with surfboards. We make platforms. People who have skill can use those to do cool shit. Or if you just want to pose, that's fine too, because they're perfectly comfortable just standing around in two. That's my style. And so my foot, bam, that motherfucker, I'm telling you, people would say, Barefoot Ted, what kind of shoe do you like? I'd say, I'd like a shoe where you eat food to grow it, a nanotechnology so it's self-repairing and healing. It'd be really great if it got better with use, right? Somehow it improved with use. And it's connected to the body some way with direct, real-time, non-latent programming. Hell, man, we got it.
How long do you think it takes for someone that has worn, the normal Nike shoes or Ultra shoes or whatever the running shoe is? How long and what does that transition look like for someone that wants to get into a more natural state of running?
Well, that's a good question. It's almost like you show up at a Pentecostal church and, you'd never been there before. And, the first question is, hey, I want to learn how to speak in tongues. Now, there are moments where there'll be a snap and somebody will get it, but probably they've been practicing a little if they hadn't. This is a crazy analogy. The fact of the matter is, first of all, you don't have to do nothing, right? Come on, folks. This is not like it's not like a dare. It's not Jackass, This is that's another thing. Barefoot Ted's not interested. And none of our intelligent ancestors ever wanted to see if they could fuck themselves up faster, right? That's called cannon fodder. And you want to get out of that group as fast as possible if you can, because they don't last long. So the reality is smart human beings treat themselves ultimately in some way as sacred objects, not to be fucked with, better than anything anyone else can make, and yours alone. I mean, I'm really into that, like this is a kind of a gift from the universe. How is it made? How did it come? We don't know for sure, but we know for a fact that our ancestors have bothered to do something to allow us to be here. So there is some kind of natural desire to honor people who have bothered to do what we know is a lot of hard work to live well and to make it into the next generation, right? A goodly number don't. So here we are, and we better do something valuable with it. Did they give us anything valuable? Yes. Should you be learning everything about that valuable thing that you embody? Oh, you better, because your brain is attached to it. And if that thing's not feeling good, not working well, not feeling hopeful, boy, that brain comes right down with it immediately. And okay. But, so where were we? Back on. Give it to me, boys.
Well, we were talking about like transitioning to natural footwear or, running barefoot, because like where we live, of course, there's not a whole lot of trails to run. So is that can somebody get into that lifestyle even with a bunch of pavement around them? Do they like split it? Is it smart to do like maybe a mile or something in like a low profile shoe and then the rest in a regular running shoe?
Well, I'm not an expert on how to get from somewhere where I haven't been to somewhere where I want to go, right? So I kind of got out of that early on. Everybody was like, hey, how do you do it? What's the story? And I just kind of gave you the background of my story. It's like, can you reduplicate that? And then I tried when I would do barefoot coaching, which I've done, and I'm going to get back. It's more like a lifestyle. It was a philosophy that I was promulgating. So the way I would answer your question is something like this: everyone should begin to experiment with themselves. And if you're a runner, you're going to want to, little by little and more, have a deeper and deeper and better connection to your own body and particularly your feet. Because if your feet aren't happy, then and you like to run a lot, and your feet aren't happy when you're running, then you're either a sadist, which I'm not, or you're going to want to, or a masochist, I should say. Let me refer to that. You're both the sado and the masochist, right? You're putting yourself in a tight contraption, and then you're making it hurt longer and longer. I mean, it's like, it's a way. It's never been my style. I like to feel great. And the surfing and skateboard world was mostly about that, except there were the accidents, right? So same in trail running. But you don't need a trail. Matter of fact, to pick up the way I used to coach, and I still do, is you actually need to learn how to move well and even trot well for short distances on hard surfaces, because hard surfaces become the greatest tool for accurate tuning. So if you take your shoes off and you learn how to move, and this is what I would do with people, you start learning how to run on asphalt in your bare feet. What is it that you would need to be able to do that? You need to learn how to have a kind of pattern that allows you to feel closer to what it feels like when you're jumping rope and you get it down right? You get really efficient, and there's a pattern. There's a cadence. You can't go slow, jump up, jump down. You got to find that pattern. And when you find that, when you start to discover that pattern through feel and practice of where you become the lightest, where you begin to understand that this miracle vehicle that you're riding in has the capacity to tune itself in such a way that it can become more and more efficient by mindfulness in the way that you land and release your foot. And so it's about learning how to not pound. It's learning how to more and more become lighter and lighter and more efficient. And that efficiency is the key. Then you carry that. Once you start getting that strategy and you start being, and it's the reason why it helps to be barefoot, and if your foot's strong enough on a hard surface, you're getting pure signal. So you're learning by having pure signal, you're getting a chance to tune into your own body, feel what it feels like, and try to adjust it to the point where it starts feeling better. And there's some tricks to do that. Then you have, with that harder signal, when you take your ultras and you go somewhere and now you're running on a trail or running in a place where you can't have full contact like that, or you don't want to, now you're tapping back into those patterns that you've felt before when you had more signal. And so I like to think of it like instruments, different instruments. Like if you learn how to play a guitar, you might be able to translate it into another stringed instrument, or surfing or skateboarding. There's all kinds of different slight nuances that you change, but in the end, the experience is ultimately is going to be the same. You want to make beautiful music. You want to get into the flow state. You want to run efficiently. So if you're a runner, you are naturally going to need to pay homage to this wonderful tool called your foot. And you need to get to know it more and more, not just scientifically or anatomically or physiologically, but also you need to build a relationship with it in experiences in the outside world, walking, standing, moving, different kinds of terrain, and build your confidence in that space so that when you are running or you've decided to do some much more epic thing, your foot has all kinds of anti-fragile capacities because it's been in the world. It's not just it knows what to do and that's kind of it's a lifetime achievement award. Your body is with you your whole life. So you might as well know everything you can about it. And if you're a runner, your foot is the thing that gives you your identity. You better take good care of that sucker. That's my theory.
I love that answer, man. I went through the pains of transitioning from like freaking like Hoka shoes to the Vibrams, and that direct response, like you were talking about, like, hey, this shit hurts on the concrete, so I need to make these adjustments to where it doesn't hurt. I'm getting to the point where, like, I ran a marathon in Vibrams. I ran trail runs and like basically minimalist shoes. And one day I just got cocky and I was like, I'm going to run around my neighborhood without shoes. And I was like, I should be able to. I mean, I've done all this training. 1 mile in and the bottom of my feet are just gone. They're like bleeding. And I'm like, well, shit. At what point do you build up the tolerance on your feet if you know the skills, right? You know, like to be soft on your feet, get into that rhythm, that flow state, but then your feet are just not really made to like hit the concrete. Like, how long did it take you for that? Like, is there a point?
Yeah, I get it. So, okay. So and this is why it's so important to not be, my joke is the only thing I'm dogmatic about is I'm dogmatically against being dogmatic, and that I'm not even dogmatic about. So, there's no way we can, we're all, as much as we all share so much as far as, being human beings and all the rest. And feet, I think it's back to, don't kids learn languages quicker? Don't, in other words, most human beings probably in the grand scheme of things up until now, I mean, at some point, just as in 2010, we reached the point where there were more human beings who now live in urban areas than in rural areas, or it's matched. So I don't know when the time's going to come when more human beings had been wearing shoes most of their lives. But certainly the United States is it's a great thing. Our affluence became affluenza, right? I mean, it's great to have affluence, and it's great to have the freedom to create things and create markets and come up with new. I mean, it's marvelous, but sometimes it backfires, right? And affluence becomes trying to look like the Joneses or whatever, trying to have the status symbols that represent this new position you're in, and sometimes in certain societies, it becomes all kinds of tools that are actually crap, right? Whatever, pointed shoes, whatever, So not everybody's had the same background growing up, and not everybody has the same genes. Not everybody has the same feet. However, when the feet, you can't just because you had the form down, like you were you were avoiding building up your foot's natural strength in the same way that you were slowly building down the Vibram, right? If you had done all your running barefoot, let's say, it would have taken way longer, I'm sure, to reach the point where you could run a marathon if you hadn't been barefoot a lot in your life before that. Keep in mind, when I had that epiphany, and then it was a few years later that I ran with the 5 fingers, I had already qualified for the Boston Marathon, running a marathon barefoot. I'd run many marathons barefoot, but I'd also qualified for the Boston Marathon running barefoot. That's why I felt like I had the gravitas to write Vibram and say, hey, look, you might have, for people like me, a piece of footwear that's going to be important, because I started realizing if I want to go do, like in Southern California, our mountains are not for sissies. I mean, these things will kick your ass up and down every way. They're steep, they're hot, they're rocky, there's everything. And it was like, holy crap, I was trying to push my limits in those mountains, and I realized I'm not going to be able to do 100 miles barefoot in the time limits required for. So that's when I started riffing on what I called the natural selection of footwear in human cultures. And that's where the sandal became the no-brainer, right? I mean, it's like anyone and everyone can make it everywhere and have. And there are living traditions where people are still doing that. And some were in my backyard, literally had been running in my backyard. So that's why you find me down in the Copper Canyons in 2006. I want to see up close and personal these like early big wave surfers. You know, they don't need a fancy foil and a pull-in to get on these big waves. They're doing it in their bare feet and in simple huaraches tied to their foot, you know, portable ground. That's when the epiphany hit for me. Not everybody needs to, it's like, yeah, you should be developing your bare feet through various things and not just running, walking, climbing, hiking, everything. It's incredibly great to tune into that and know what your capacities are. I mean, all the martial artists, all the gymnasts, all the people who do cool stuff that requires nuance, their feet are strong and nimble. So that's kind of, I mean, I go on and on like that. That's how I riff.
I want some hope. So I thought you just ran the marathons and the Vibrams. I didn't know you were doing those barefoot. So on concrete, when you do a marathon, are your feet just jacked after, or are they okay?
Perfectly okay.
So no cuts, no like bruises, anything like that?
Nope.
Okay.
No,
so
conceivably, I mean, it depends on the situation, right? I mean, I guess if you're running in like, I'll tell you a story, mind boggler. 2006, I have signed up for the inaugural, and as far as I know, only Route 6600 miler. So it starts in, I don't know, somewhere, and it's going to end in the eastern part of the state, whatever, maybe Oklahoma City, or no, Sayre, I think. Anyway, I think I'm going to run that thing in bare feet. I can do it. I'm trained for it. And I had my 5 fingers along as a backup, but I thought I'll start this race and see if I event. So I got to mile 72. And I was running with a guy who was from Oklahoma, friends with the race director. So I felt pretty confident that I was with somebody who would be able to guide me well. It was about 2 or 3 in the morning at this point. To give you an idea how cold it was at this time, the water in my Camelback was freezing in the tube, right? So it's cold. But if you're moving, cold doesn't mean much, right? I mean, this is giving you an indication. Well, we make a wrong turn. And this motherfucker gets me down, going down. So the worst possible scenario for bare feet is this. Give me a hard surface, then give me a bunch of little man-made broken rocks. Little ones all over. Put them on. Now get this down to freezing. Now make them run over it for miles and miles, and then let them come to a dead end in the middle of the night with a frozen water bottle, having just ran for several miles where every single football literally allowed tears to pop out of my eyes. Have you ever had tears pop out of your eyes on every football? Woo! I'm telling you, you don't want to do that ever. So my feet were okay. In other words, they didn't get damaged. They were just like the tip of your genitals, the tip of your fingers, and the tip of your toes are loaded with nerve endings, those extremities, you know? And boy, when you put them through that, you will quickly, in your mind, invent a shoe in your mind. And then I put on the 5 fingers and I ran the rest of the way. And that's the story with that. But in the end, a well-developed, and this is partly genetics too. I mean, there's, who knows, having fattier, thicker feet, but the feet, the skin on them, if you have developed them well over time, and some people can do this better than others, like some people grow really beautiful hair, beards, and all the rest. Some have these humongous pectorals that are just actually gorgeous to look at. And some have feet that are a little bit hardier than others. And I'm pretty sure that mine are, in the latter, I'd be like a Dolly Parton of feet, sort of, kind of speaking.
That's good.
So I follow, I don't know if you know, do you know Tony Riddle? He's like a big.
Yes, I know Tony Riddle. Dude, because we share an ancestor from Texas.
Oh,
and
what
I'm
the
not
heck?
kidding.
Full circle here.
Full circle.
He's actually from, I think, England or something. But anyways.
He's in England.
Yeah.
My grandmother was Ona Riddle from East Texas. So, and he's a Riddle. And so we got a Riddle-in together, and we kind of, it's a long and interesting story that also has the Choctaw Indians involved. But my God, that's another podcast for another day.
Well, that's very odd because y'all both are big advocates for barefoot running, and he has hardy feet too. He talks about it a lot. So he talks about like his feet being like a jelly kind, like you would think it's like real callousy, but it's actually really jelly, like
he's
and soft.
Right. It's so what I used to say. So it's not thick and hard. So if you want a really strong material, think Kevlar. You want lots and lots of thin layers. You don't want a thick, unfeeling pad. Because that's actually not as strong, right? You can penetrate that. But lots and lots of thin layers with a hardy base of fat. Like I said, eat food to grow type shit is great. Then if that's the style you want to, if you want to go that way all the way, then you literally start designing your, whatever it is you're trying to achieve in your athleticism, to do everything in that state. In other words, if you really want to go this program, you do the experiment where you start and you literally, who knows, is it going to take weeks, months, years, decades, who knows? But in the end, if you really want to do the experiment, go full commando, and then tease in your expectation. The big problem with people who got this epiphany of barefooting, then they also wanted to be part of all the new extreme ultras and all the rest. They don't really necessarily, they're not one and the same thing. So I'm trying to say, look, all these people exuberating, wanting to go run all day long, everywhere, all the time, you better start investing in equipment because probably a barefoot runner, your ancestors not just going to waste energy all day long doing all kinds of shit. What they're going to look for to do is, what's the least amount that I can do that gives me the biggest result? Efficiency is key. With intelligent ancestors, just burning yourself endlessly over here. I want these guys on my cannon fodder team. Okay, guys, we're going to go beat the shit. This guy over here is going, he's like Diogenes. He's the naked barefoot philosopher at the outside of the city gates. He's just hanging out, having a good time. These guys over here got to get something done. Well, if you're this guy, take your time. Have fun all the time. But the best reality is, of course, this movement. Get in the middle path. Have a little of both. Move forward and have fun.
Do you if you're gonna race, if you're gonna go on this run, are you gonna start barefoot or are you gonna throw the sandals on? And do you ever get do you ever start seeing the advantages of the sandals and want that comfort again? Like, how he became?
No, I'm all about comfort now. I'm all about comfort now. So if I'm going to do something that I'm never trying to see if I can get uncomfortable. I'm not interested. I mean, it's like, I mean, that seems ridiculous because so many of these, you know, it's like the I'm going to go, you know, it's like the surfer skater attitude is, how am I going to, I don't want any pain. That's going to come. There's going to be some kind of pain if you're an adventurer. Something's going to happen that you didn't expect, but I don't look for it. I'm not trying to like gather it up more quickly. I'm doing all, if I can get through riding a big wave, doing a skateboard run or doing a trail run, and I don't have any injuries and I'm not in pain, I don't have a problem here. I haven't failed myself. So comfort's important. And I have a sandal company and I'm embroiled in that. I'm in that. So we're like surfers making surfboards. We don't just like make designs and push a button and somebody over there makes something and then we do all we can endlessly trying to sell it to somebody else. We're trying to get people to tap into the feel of what we make, the craft of the objects we make, so that they can sort of get into this same kind of philosophy I'm in, sort of enjoy the process and the flow of it, and realizing with great footwear like sandals, it really is the brain connected to the foot, connected to the hand, learning how to sort of get that, be that specific about how that sandal's going to feel, or, you know, and it's not always going to be the perfect tool in the toolkit, but in many places and at many times, sandals are the best solution. And I'm also working on, you know, socks and booties, and I'm working on a piece of footwear that I think is going to be really quite remarkable. It's something I've been wanting to do for a long time. I'm working with a third generation Japanese family-owned footwear manufacturing group. And in 1950, the Boston Marathon was won by a young Japanese guy. He was among the first group of Japanese to be able to run or compete in an international event since the end of World War II. The Japanese nor the Germans were invited to the 1948 Olympics. So the first Japanese runners have come to the United States for the Boston Marathon in 1950, and a 19-year-old crosses that line as the winner. They call him Atomic Boy. He saw the flash of Hiroshima, and he was wearing a tabby booty shoe that that I've always been intrigued in. And I actually told Vibram back in the day, I said, you know, after I did the Boston Marathon in 2006, that was their first, you know, that from my running that in my blog back then, basically they became like the hotcakes of, you know, my first question to them after I ran with it was, you know, is this a stock company, or is there some way that I can participate? I was not very sophisticated, but I realized this was going to be hot. In my mind, I knew it. And boy, I was right. So I've been prognosticating on these things. And then I decided I better put my foot in the door, so to speak. And that's why I started Luna in 2009 as like an official company. And then we developed it, and it has launched so many people have, you know, copied is not exactly the right word. This is not a copy. We're all in it together, right? I mean, a surfboard, nobody has, like, you know, people have been figuring out ways to float on something and go somewhere from the beginning of time. Who makes the better one? Who's in it more? What's legit? What matters to me as a consumer? I don't always, not everybody is going to want to get the best skateboard or the best surfboard or can even afford it, right? Or there's not even enough. So Luna's I love having a company that is an expression of my philosophy of life in an object that other people can use. And then I get to go and see them use that object in their epic, you know, in their unfolding of their own lives. And man, I'm telling you, there's no better way to, and I wish this for everybody, to find ways to add value to the world and gain value from it, is to finding cool solutions to things, problems, or ideas that you have, and turning them into, well, you know, even a podcast is an object, you know, turning it into something valuable that you can share with others that adds more value. I mean, it's so much better than having a commissar or a sergeant tell you what to do, when you can just tell yourself what you want to do and then go do it. Let me tell you, folks, choose the latter.
What kind of, you're very passionate about all your learnings in life. And I know you mentioned coaching. What kind of, do you only coach running? Because I picture you kind of coaching a little bit of everything, like even like down to a diet. Do you do that kind of things too?
Yeah, you guys, I've been when I was I'm not in. I mean, I don't push my coaching yet because I really I've been looking in my mind. It's very, very important to be adaptive and to flexible in your and willing to experiment in every part of your life. That's once again that great freedom that if you're a human being, you should make every effort to preserve, because through that process, you're going to learn things for yourself that matter, right? And so, coach, you're exactly right. I'm wanting to figure out. I mean, I'm starting to have all these life experiences now, and it's really great to be able to call them directly right from your own experience. And so when you're, in my case, if I'm talking about my experience, I really feel like I'm an expert, right? I really enjoy becoming the expert on myself. And in reality, that's what the riff I'm trying to get everyone to get on is become the expert of yourself. And how do you do that? Well, sometimes you rely on other experts to see what you can learn from them, riff with them, resonate with them, what is valuable and so forth. I want to start doing more of that. I've got to find a more efficient way to do that. And, we've talked about podcasts. You can imagine people, we need to film you this and I'm like, I want to let it work into my lifestyle. And I also want to feel like I really have something to offer. And as I approach my 60th birthday, I'm starting to feel it's almost like the new birthday to say I'm mature now. It's like, I think, it used to be, I don't know, you had to be mature younger and then you had to go through school. Now you're mature maybe when you graduate high school, then maybe it's you graduate from university, then maybe it's a doctor. I think at some point, the world is so complex and awesome these days. It really is almost like it takes 60 years now to get to the point where you really are starting. I mean, I'm speaking for myself because I'm a slow learner, but I'm persistent. I'm feeling like 60 is that golden number where, because of all these new things that we've learned that are going to be, regardless of whether we really live longer or not, we can live as if we're going to live longer if we take better care of ourselves. It's, after all, one day at a time. So what I would be teaching people, if I'm teaching anything through just example, is how to create a daily practices that are feeding you and not diminishing you, and getting people to what are the strategies to do that and what's going to be his or her strategy to do that. That's what I want to do. But I think I'm going to need some retreats. I'm already, my way of like, I'm going down to the Copper Canyons a couple times a year. There's 2 great events down there. One in March, the Caballo Blanco Ultramarathon, which is, an incredible event. It's like this, it's where the book Born to Run starts, basically. Mm-hmm. And then there's another one in October that we just started a few years ago in Sirikawa. So I'm already part of those groups, and I play a role like a mentor. But in the future, it'll be, I think, small groups of people. And I'm already what they would call a lifestyle coach. I just haven't, put that sign up yet. I'm getting ready to go. I'm getting ready to do that sign. And then it would be everything. It's, everything that applies to all parts of your life, and trying to see if I was coaching people, the first question I ask is, and I get them to understand this quote from Howard Thurman, Martin Luther King Jr.'s mentor, a Baptist mystic. Okay, there's only one. And he says, don't ask what the world needs. Instead, ask what makes you come alive, and do that, because what the world needs are people who have come alive. So helping people discover if they are convincing them, suggesting to them that that's a good goal, and then talking about what might be the process of getting there through hints of what I've seen others do or myself. I think I might get into that, and I think I might enjoy it. And I love this forum, right? I like actually even podcasting, right? I just love the forum of, we don't know what the hell is going to happen here. And then, oh, wow. I like that when, something unexpected and good happens. So I want to create more environments like that, is the long answer to that very Good question.
Sounds like you need to have a podcast.
Yeah.
But
yeah. It's more fun to do them though, right?
less work for sure.
Yeah, less work. It's like, 8:00. Okay. Hello.
So man, you're a person that we've seen give a lot of thought to everything you do. So I think we've skimmed around this question quite a bit, but I want to know, like, for sure, like, what is your philosophy on your diet?
Well, quality in, quality. Grandmothers don't lie. Look back over time. If grandmother's putting it in your mouth, eat it. You're going to be happy.
Damn, my grandmother was trying to feed me tortillas and shit, though, man.
Well, yeah. Let me rephrase that. Grandma's
white grandma.
The 20th century. Grandma's before the 20th century. You can trust. Okay. There's a book called Nourishing Traditions. Grandma's figured out. So human beings are capable of living on toxic waste, as we've seen. We have a whole culture that's learned how to do it, right? So humans can live on toxic waste. Well, or they can, let's put it this way, they can keep their body going long enough to be able to get onto the other side of the equation, which is all the wonderful medicines that they'll give you to help you deal with the toxic waste. So there's like a double dose toxic waste dump society that still somehow continues to move forward. Of course, they're very, very concerned about the possibility they might drop dead at any second because they get a virus, right? So it's really tough if you're like feeling like, if you're in a car and it's like rattling and then the motor's like boom, 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 and then the gas gauge is kind of low and my fucking God, take it easy on that thing. Pull it over and fix it, man. Okay? I'm not that kind of person. I eat stuff that makes me stronger, happier, and healthier. I don't eat poison. So when I eat animals, I make sure they're not poisoned and fed poison. And I try not to eat animals that have been, basically fed on poisons and given antibiotics, sort of like the population we've created. I wouldn't eat that, for example.
I imagine you're kind of like an animal-based diet, fruit, like red meat, even some chicken.
Yes,
possibly.
Absolutely. What I suggest, back to like the barefoot running concept, you have to build into certain things. Many people need to like immediately stop doing whatever they're doing. You know what I mean? Like there's some people who are like, if they've been following what they've been told was good for them because of any kind of marketing campaign or government recommendation, tear that shit up, throw it away. Start experimenting. And a good thing to start experimenting with is one simple thing is to try whatever you're eating even now is to try to see if you can throw in some this really worked for me, some intermittent fasting get to the situation where you can start to get your body being more of a fat burner than a sugar burner is the way they often word it. And a great way to test that is, and I've done it, it's very much a pattern, a consistent pattern in my life now, where I spend a lot of time, almost every day. It's pretty regular, where there's periods of time I will not be eating anything, and the sweet spot for me seems to be something like between 15 and 17 hours of basically, not having a meal, so to speak. I like coffee, so I'll wake up, I'll have bulletproof coffee of some kind, or espresso, a few. I'm not against cannabis, I'll take some of that if I want it, or anything for that matter, to be honest.
What do you got, huh?
Yeah, when I say that, I'll just say I'm also fascinated and have been all of my life in the whole world of ancestral medicines. And my contacts in that world have just, expanded and expanded. And the whole cannabis world too, in the sense that back to the light of day, free people consensually trading with each other. No one has the right to stop that, never has. All the bad behavior before, when people were trying to stop free people from doing things that are harming no one, and putting them in jail and stuff like this. This was a scourge. This is bad behavior and wrong, because there's so many traditions and things. It's all about dosage of everything, food, exercise, everything is all about finding the balance. And so that's why I'm so attracted to balance sports. You know, I grew up skateboarding. You know, I've been skateboarding now, I realize, for over 50 years. And I'm really good now. I'm better now than I've ever been. It's not a joke. And in this case, it's long distance type stuff, pumping. And I had the world record, 242 miles in 24 hours. There's now several people who have done over 300 miles.
Yeah. Do you longboard? Is it longboard?
Longboard.
Dude, I'm really into longboarding. I have.
Yeah, well, I look, up in Seattle when I was living up there was a whole movement. It's called long distance pumping.
Yes.
And my friend got me into it. I ran into him in April 2008. And by June, I had the world. I was like in top condition. This friend, James Peters, I ran into him at a lake in Seattle. I saw that board. I said, dude, what's this? And he's like, well, we do this thing long. And then he gave me a board to borrow. I started training on it. And I thought, oh, okay. He had the record. It was 200 at the time. It was 208. And I thought, damn, I'd love to just do 100 miles, you know, in a skateboard. That'd be so awesome, because I was whoa, then I started to realize I'm getting better and better and better and better. And in the end, on that day, in a poorly set, of course, I did 242. My mind was like friggin' blown, right? And so, and I actually did it in 5 fingers. It turned out it was really helpful to have that foot strength, to be able to do it's kind of like a wiggle, but when you get it really good, it almost becomes like a vibration. And so these boards, the value for me is these guys were geeking on the boards, man. The tuning of everything, the durometer of the rubber in the trucks, the wheels, the way the board I ride now, it's a subsonic, and it's like the company's out of business. Oh, no, that's a row racing now. Anyway, it's got like a certain kind, it's all about like the instrument. And so now when I put a 50-year-old violin player given a Stradivarius, bam, I'm telling you, dude, when I ride now, it's like pure bonus points. It's like when you get into that zone and it's effortless flow. And it's really not effortless in the sense, but it's not effortful. It's really just a fine tuning of the whole body in real time that only a very powerful processor can do that kind of shit. That's called the human body. That's why when you get it into that state, it feels so good. You're at a very, very, very high level. Like barefoot, and I used to say barefoot running, and you can do it on a complex terrain. Think about it. You program a robot to run over a complex terrain in sensitive feet. It is nuance of control. You don't teach a kid how to play a piano with oven mittens on, it'll become a percussion instrument. Mm-hmm. They got to have that nuance. So let kids, and especially, get them to be developing their barefooting skills. Don't get them wearing all the bullshit in the beginning. Let them have some accidents. Let that foot bleed a little. I mean, yeah, watch out for, you got to be careful, obviously. I'm not, but let the kids learn by experience. Anyway, got on another riff. Sorry, folks.
I can't believe you do this long distance longboarding. Like, I literally have a range set up. I got the 85 millimeter seismic wheels with ceramic bearings. Like, I go out, we do miles and miles. Like, I got 2 setups now, but I didn't think a lot of people were into the long distance longboarding, but we do this thing called Critical Mass. It's a big bike ride. They do about like 30 miles in downtown Houston, but everybody's on bikes and I do it on my longboard, and people are like,
dude, I mean, blow your mind on that. So the friend James Peters that got me into all this, then I did the record, and then later on that year, they have what's called the STP. That's where bicyclers ride from Seattle to Portland. We did it on skate. He's done it many times. Dude, after that, I retired from skateboarding. Scared the living hell out of me. I'm not in, at that point I wasn't as old as I am now, but it was 2008. So I was still in my late 40s. Dude, we were on, I never want to go faster than I can safely get off that motherfucker, right? We were going, oh my God. I came so close. There was one situation where we're going down this hill on freshly laid, gritty asphalt at speed with wobbles. It would have been the worst accident in the history of the world. Ugh. Trauma. Okay. Yeah, that's the problem with skateboards. I have a lot of trauma, probably serious head injuries that has something to do with the way I'm acting now.
Well, Dev, we're in Texas, right? So I'm just doing long distance and it's hardly any elevation gain. So it's like in California, I imagine it's scary because I put my foot down, I can stop. I don't think y'all can stop. You have to jump off. Well,
I'm at the beach. Okay. I'm in Santa Barbara. So It turns out I have, back in the 70s when I visited my grandparents here, I think my prayers were answered. God sometimes works in mysterious ways because I swear to you now, the rides that I do here, someday you'll have to visit, truly skateboard paradise. There are hills. I have other machines for that. I'm friends with inventors of the one wheel, the skateboard thing. I help them on their Kickstarter, but I'm actually friends with people who are doing much more cooler one wheel stuff. I have a friend we're going to be introducing something here in the not too distant future that's going to revolutionize that space. I'm interested in that space too. And actually the human augmented version of that space where you start adding through riding techniques, efficiencies into the machine to get greater distances or speeds. That's what I'm into.
We actually got him to ride a one wheel 2 weekends ago.
You should have seen me, Ted. I was fucking tearing it up.
Dude, that one, it's all I can say is there's going to be some really cool shit coming into that space. And it's a whole nother world of being able to use human skills, right? The ability to ride boards and things like this. I prefer going this. By the way, you'll find that when you get into those machines that go this way, where your feet are here, you can get much more into your running core, so that I actually there's this famous running coach named Dr. Romanoff. He created the pose method. When I started riding the wheels early on, I started realizing, oh my gosh, this position riding on that solo wheel is ideal running form. So I've been really tweaking, so it's just that perfect lean, learning how to be relaxed in your upper body. And when you're really running well, when you're barefoot, I used to always say it's like creating an energetic wheel and then you ride on the top of it. So the smoother you can make that wheel, the better. Well, the solo wheel's like, the smoothest you can get. And then since it has regenerative braking, you can add power to it by pushing, store up some energy, going downhill, tucking into the wind. There's all these little tricks. So I hope to have this race in Santa Barbara in the future, pier to peak to pier, where you'll start at the beach, ride to the peak, 4,000 feet behind you and 16 miles away, turn around and come on back. And it's always possible. If you can make it to the top of this race, since you have regenerative braking, you can always get back. So it's going to be kind of fun. Maybe you guys will have to come and check it out. And I'm also not against electric skateboards, by the way. I want to see those boom too, because any way you can, and the kids these days with their electric bikes, they're back to like the days when they didn't need the parents anymore. And now the parents can spend some more time doing something else. And those kids are zooming around, with I love it. I would, oh my God, if I could have what the kids have today. My territory, well, yeah, I probably wouldn't have made it. I'd be like Jay Adams and some of my other heroes. They became professional skateboarders at 14. I was good enough, but my mom wouldn't let me. Those guys went straight to jail and heavy drug use. I would have been right with them.
Yeah, I like all the technology, man. It's fun. Like we were in the parking lot for hours, like trying to do tricks and stuff, but there's something about just the pure like mechanical device just driven by a human and going from like a point A to point B. And, just like you did, the 200 and something miles, it's like, there's something cool about just you driving, but I also like the technology and how, like,
it's trying to combine those two, right? So like with the solo wheel or a wheel where you have one and you're on both sides of the platform like this, I found other cool things. One, you can take one foot off and start pushing if necessary.
Sure.
But the next thing, I'm working on these dynamics where if you have a slightly underinflated tire, you have a spring, right? So then as you're riding, if you start getting a pulse, something to the cadence of a good running, you begin to have these on every cycle, a moment when you're airborne. Now you're putting the energy from your body to get that little bit of, but if you get it down to a vibrant, there's all these new, in other words, I really got inspired by that spaceship designer back in the day. I mean, back in the day when this kid was believing, I was expecting computers to be talking to me and help. I saw 2001 in 1969, and I saw also the first video conferencing thing on TV back then. So I expected everybody saying, Teddy, you're going into the space age in the computer. It's like, okay, my understanding of what that should be at that time, it's almost like I expected back then. So I was very disappointed in the adult units. It's like, all these fucking promises, no reality here, man. You guys suck. And they were always trying to get me to cut my hair and wear shoes. And the church I would go to at the time, I was going to a church, my Aunt Niney would take me. And I went because I had an agreement with God that I could go to McDonald's afterwards, and we were good on that. And also we made this little agreement. My aunt would give me a pittance of some coins, a few, and I was supposed to use it. And God and I made a little agreement that I could keep those and invest it in other things. And we're still on that. We're still like there. But the thing about the church is the symbol that for that church was like a preteen Jesus with kind of long hair in bare feet with a lion and a lamb behind him. And I glommed onto that image. I couldn't understand the church at all. All my other friends, I'm a Baptist, I'm a yada yada. Our church was the Reorganized Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. What the fuck do you do with that shit? I didn't even know what those words meant. I remember the reorganized. So I'm asking my aunt, the reorganized. What reorganized me? It's like, are you already kidding me? You've just twisted a kid's head into a noodle. Mm. So I never did get an answer on that. It turns out, I do know now, they were the official Mormon church that broke away from and in the end, they just became basically a place where old ladies went with powdered themselves and sang songs. And I learned how to look at a preacher talking and make him disappear in my eyes while looking at him.
I love it. That's hilarious.
So what's coming up in the next year for you? Where can people get involved and get Lunas and all the good stuff?
Well, there's always so many things going on. One exciting thing, I have this very strong commitment to these friends that I've made down in the Copper Canyons, the Barranca del Cobre of Chihuahua, Mexico. People, you need to go. The book Born to Run made that area seem like a terrifying place, and it has been in the past. I mean, whenever you have drug gangs and you're in you're in the gangland between their two territories, that's never, I'm sure there's places like that in Houston, everywhere. There's places where you really don't want to be there. They don't care about you, but they're so busy caring about themselves. If you're in that middle ground, you're kind of fucked. So the way I look at it is, over the last 15 years, I've seen nothing but a continual upgrading of the existence of the peoples that are our friends down there with cool events. And now, really incredible celebration. Back in 2006, the race, there were like a total of 24 people. There are now in March, it's always the first Sunday of March, thousands or well over 1,000 people. There's children's races now. There's celebrations. There's people from coming all over the world. There's just this giant energy of goodwill happening down there these days. And basically the cartel, growing marijuana, they don't have to grow marijuana in the Copper Canyons anymore. Poppies, no, they don't need to do that anymore. They make fentanyl and TJ. They don't. So it's becoming once again what it was before, this wonderful place. And so I want more people to go down to the Copper Canyons in the future. And I'm heading down there in October. So that's my big thing. October, Copper Canyons, there's going to be a new 100-miler. The location, oh my gosh, I know so many people down there now. It's such a cool place. I really hope some of your listeners take some time to explore that and maybe join me down there one of these trips. There's like you pay one price and you meet somewhere in Chihuahua City and everything's taken care of for you, and you're in a small group of 40 or whatever people. Just the interactions that happen in that kind of environment are so powerful, of other runners coming from all over the world to this thing. And that's where I started riffing on this pilgrimage idea. You remember I told you about Junipero Serra, the saint day of my birthday, July 1st, the patron saint of California. Well, there are 21 missions in California that start in San Diego and end in Sonoma. And I'm now riffing on this idea of what many of these running events have been sort of modern pilgrimages, right? You get a bunch of people, open-hearted people, friendly people who have a common goal, are creating meaningful connections and meaningful experiences. And that's what so many people are missing these days. I want to find more opportunities to have places and purposes where people go together, either running or walking on long distances between places. And in the future, California will be a great one. And boy, won't it be awesome to like start in San Diego and end in Sonoma 21 days later. There could be a race, there could be, and then each of the kind of missions could be places where non-sectarian people can come, share food and experience. I think it's going to be really cool. So I hope you guys will join me with that someday in the future. I'm cogitating, it's a soup. When I start seeing it this way, it's pretty sure I'm going to serve it at some day in the future.
That's awesome.
Well, Ted, we greatly appreciate your time, man. It's been a pleasure speaking with you. We've been following you ever since we read the book. So it's been a real pleasure, man.
Right on, dudes. Thank you so much for having me on your podcast. And I can't wait. Please send me the link when it's ready. I can't wait to share it with everybody.
No,
I definitely kind of push. I hope I didn't talk too much. You know how that goes.
No, man, that's the point of the podcast, buddy.